From the Ministry of Silly Walks, Fawlty Towers to James Bond, John Cleese has come a long way since getting his break at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe over half a century ago. John sat down with me to share the incredible story of his life as one of the world's most loved comics and why life is better in shorts. Hello, Mr. Cleese, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted you're going to talk about my book.
Oh, we are going to talk about your book. I'm particularly delighted that you're writing it here in Sydney.
Well,
why?
There is no point in being in England from about the middle of November through to something like the end of April if you can avoid it in any way. And somebody'd asked me to do a movie, and I suddenly thought, well, if I go out to Aussie to do a movie, what am I hurrying back to London before I miss February for? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just thought I'd stay out here. Then the movie fell through. So I did a few stage shows for pocket money, and I've written 44,000 words since I've been here.
What made you decide to write a memoir now?
I thought about writing this about 15 years ago. And my agents introduced me to a New York guy called Mort. He's a terribly famous publisher, Mort Zanklo. Right. And he took me out to lunch, and I said to him, well, Mr. Zanklo, if I wrote an autobiography, what sort of advance do you think I could get? And he named a figure that was about 15% of what I thought he was, and I was a bit shocked. So I said, well, will you check this with the British publishers? And he came back to me and said, yes, they confirm. And I said, but there was a disc jockey recently who got 3 times as much as this. Right. And he went back to his British people again, and he came back and said, yes, but he was very well loved. Oh. Which I thought was quite an interesting angle for one's publishers to take. The reason I wanted to do it is that Michael Caine had once said to me at lunch in Barbados that when he was writing his, he began to reclaim large areas of his life that he'd totally forgotten about. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to do. But I just tell a few stories and anecdotes and give a few opinions and talk a little bit about it, what it was like working with Peter Sellers or Marty Feldman or, you know, the Pythons, all these people. A lot of the time, I'm actually able to make myself laugh, and people think that's odd. Well, the first time you think of a joke is the first time you've heard it.
That's
right.
Do
you see what I mean?
That's right, and you think it's funny.
And I think it's funny, yeah.
And if it makes you laugh, that's a good litmus
That's
test.
right, and then in the evening, I read it out to my wife, and if it makes her laugh, then I leave it.
Yeah. And does writing come to you naturally?
Fairly, but it's because I've written dialogue all my life, you see. I don't write for the printed page. I've hardly ever done that. Yeah. I think I wrote a little bit for one or two of the Python books, and that was about it. But because the dialogue is now, I'm pretty good at dialogue, but I read everything out loud. Yeah. And as I write it, I read it out loud, and really I just listen to see if it sounds right.
How did you fall into it? So I read somewhere that you wanted to be an athlete, and so an athlete and a comedian.
Well, an athlete, well, wasn't the word used in my day. I was passionate about soccer and cricket.
Oh, right, okay.
And if at the age of 10 someone had said, you will die at 40, but by then you will have played for Somerset and for Bristol City, I would have said done deal. Because that was what I cared about in those days. Then I got into Cambridge because I was reasonably bright without really knowing anything about anything. And then when I was at Cambridge, I switched to law, and by chance I joined this club called the Footlights. And while I was in that club, I found I had a facility for writing. And after that, the show that I was in, purely by chance, happened to be exceptionally good, mainly because we had 2 major stars, Bill Oddie, Tim Brooke Taylor from the Goodies. And we got into the West End and ran for 5 months, and the BBC offered me a job as a writer in radio, which I loved. And it all kind of rolled on from there. But I was saying last night, I suppose to some extent I've kept reinventing myself. You know, after Fawlty Towers, I didn't really feel it was very smart to go off and do another sitcom.
No, that's right. I've got to say, I mean, the body of work, you've got Monty Python and Fawlty Towers, which was my particular favourite. I must confess, I've probably watched both series about 10 or 15 times in my life. Nice. And every time, it's like hearing it for the first time.
There's so much in them, you see.
There's so much.
Average BBC half-hour script is about 65 pages long, and Connie and I used to write 140 pages.
Wow.
For one page,
Yeah.
on the average sitcom, we would do 2 pages. It was that fast, and there's so much in it. You can keep noticing things that you didn't notice the first time.
Oh, absolutely. But what I did, I felt exhausted by each episode. When now I read that maybe you were interested in being an athlete or a sportsman, and I look at those episodes, and you can see it. It is so physical to be a comedian.
Yes. When I said I wasn't an athlete, you see, we didn't use the word athlete in those days, except for 3 weeks in the middle of the spring term when we used to hurdle and high jump.
Yes.
But I was always a games player, and I used to love squash. The saddest moment of my life was when my knee collapsed in the middle of a movie in '85. And after that, I was never able to play games again.
Now, also, you've written a book about relationships.
Well, yes, I had a very good experience with an English psychiatrist, and then by an extraordinary coincidence, which is too long to relate, but it had to do with Fawlty Tower. His son actually wanted to get him tickets for one of the recordings, and of course it was the show about the psychiatrist. Yeah. We met afterwards, which was a year or so after I'd been in therapy, and we sort of thought it might be nice to be able to talk together in a different way. Yeah. And I became very close with him and his wife, Prue. And in the end, I said to him, you know, I don't think we'll ever get this on television, but it might be interesting to write a book giving some of the stuff you taught me when I was in the therapy group. Yeah. Because everyone will find it interesting.
Do you think we need to be taught how to have relationships?
Oh, yes, I think we need to discuss, compare, and experience our emotional lives. I think you see, people are very good at their work by and large. They're certainly good at the technical sides of their work. You know, people can build cathedrals and put people on the moon, but they can't stop fighting each other. So it's our emotional lives lag so far behind our intellectual lives.
I heard you say somewhere that if we meditated, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, maybe we'd be better people.
Well, I think the world would be a much better place. I really do, because I think we don't know how to calm our emotions. And now with all these iPads and iPhones and so forth,
we can't switch off.
Cannot switch off. And there's no, if you're trying to be creative, and I lecture on this. Yeah. I've got very good seminars. I teach people how to be creative. The killer is interruptions.
Yeah.
You talk at kids now; they're interrupted all the time. Yeah. You know, you can't put a mouthful of food in your mouth without the phone going ding. You know, another email, better answer. Yeah. So people live these very scattered, slightly frantic lives, and there's nothing that coheres or becomes substantial in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, John, that's it from us. I think we are very, very much looking forward to reading your autobiography.
Good.
I think it's going to be a book that everybody will want to read.
Thank you for helping me sell my book.